Well, guys, the BBC are starting their very own Ministry of Truth, headed up by none other than the disinformation trout Mariana Spring. Yeah, in what increasingly seems like we're living in 1984, we now have the public-funded state broadcaster planning to be our arbiter of truth.
Dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. Everything else you see, a grain of salt. And so I really ask people to focus.
This, I have to say, is laughable when you think back to the past few years and how much of what they said was blatant disinformation. But you know what? Let's hear what this trout is actually doing.
And the point of the team, as you said, is to verify video, to fact check, to counter disinformation, and to analyse really complex stories so we can get to the truth of what's going on. And there are other ways that we also are able to interrogate what's going on, including on social media. I have some undercover accounts that I've set up for the BBC's Americast podcast, and we use these kinds of undercover accounts, and these are the characters that the accounts belong to be able to really understand polarisation online and how what's happening on our social media feeds and what we're being recommended and pushed to us can affect all of us. And they don't offer us a totally exhaustive insight into what's going on, but they can help us understand just how social media works. And then there's also investigating other mistruths and the real world harm they can cause. At the moment, I'm investigating the UK's conspiracy theory movement. I'm trying to understand more about how it's evolved and intensified since the pandemic here in the UK. I'm looking at the alternative media that finds itself at the heart of this movement and a conspiracy theory newspaper that's a part of that as well. I'm looking at the way that alternative media is funded. I'm looking at its impact on local communities. I'm looking at its connections with far-right figures and also its foreign links. That's for a podcast series that will be coming out in June. It's called Mariana in Conspiracy Land, and it will be available on BBC Sounds, Radio 4, asking that question, could January the 6th or a German coup attempt like we saw there ever happen here in...
Well, just wow, what a word salad of bullshit that was, but this is essentially the BBC trying to keep the narrative it pushes from being torn apart like it did the past couple of years. This trout's crap will be used to pressure social media companies to remove anyone they say is spreading misinformation, and as you can see by what she's investigating, the bias is very clear. Yeah, looking at this, her only interest seems to be right-wing and not the left, proving without a doubt the goals of this agenda. Some champagne socialists will call for revolution and you won't hear a repeat from her, but the second you say the media lies or anything like that, you're gonna be a Nazi. You won't see her investigating the blatant lies her own ilk put out, the same as you won't see them talking about the BBC's Unvaccinated documentary that was full of shit along with their other lies during the pandemic. Oh yes, the wards full of children, jab efficacy and all that, which proved to be bollocks, was something the BBC pumped out 24 hours a day, and yet they want to be our sole source of truth in future. Oh, and you won't see her calling out the other BBC lies like labelling anti-EU-less protesters far right or any of that. Now, one silver lining to this Ministry of Truth is that it will help wake lots of people up, because when it comes to lies and covering up their lies, the BBC are absolutely piss poor at it. I mean, they sent this wet wipe to interview Elon Musk, who swiftly ripped him a new arsehole.
You've changed the COVID misinformation.
Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation? Does the BBC hold itself at all responsible for misinformation regarding masking and side effects of vaccinations, and not reporting on that at all? And what about the fact that the BBC was put under pressure by the British government to change its editorial policy? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, they are clowns, but this is still dangerous because the BBC seeks to be the voice of truth, there to smear anyone challenging the official narrative. We see them and many others doing it during the pandemic, but now it seems they've got some funding from Gates or the WHO to ramp it all up again, ready for their future censorship plans. But really, the only way we can stop this is to actually defund the BBC. People need to cancel TV licenses and in mass numbers before this grows, because I bet it will. You can just imagine what they're going to use this for going forward.